standing against the First Minister, Carwyn Jones. And of course, most of you probably live here in Cardiff. So if you have any friends, family members who live in Bridgend, and if you agree with what I'm saying today, I would like to urge you to ask them to vote for me. Thank you.
I'm Amelia Womack and I'm standing in South Wales Central and Cardiff Central, and this is really our chance to make history by getting the very first Greens elected into the Welsh Assembly, and we can do it this time if people vote Green on their grey regional ballot papers. So that's vote Green on grey on the 5th of May, which I hope is catchy enough to remember.
I'm Julie Morgan. I'm the Labour candidate in Cardiff North, which is like that, between Labour and Conservative, one of the absolute key seats. I'm pleased, I'm proud really to have been the chair of the cross-party group for PCS over the last 5 years. I've been very pleased to be on a picket line with you on many occasions. I am totally with you in this dispute, and if re-elected, I'll be doing my utmost to see that there is a resolution to what I think is a very, very important dispute, and where I feel you've been treated very unfairly.
My name is Ross Saunders. I'm the lead candidate on the regional list for a new organisation called the Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition. We're set up by groups of socialists and trade unionists because we think that our movement doesn't have a political party. And the reason that we're facing the brunt of austerity now is that ordinary working class people aren't defended from the attacks that are aimed at us by the super rich and their political agents. And we are being made to pay for that because we're politically undefended. So we need a political organisation of our own, just like we need a union organisation. We wouldn't let the bosses and their agents in to run our unions, and we shouldn't support political parties that have that agenda as well. So vote for TUSK, for 100% opposition to all cuts, to use the Assembly as a platform to resist cuts, to refuse to pass them on to NHS boards or other public sector bodies, to nationalise steel as well and solve the crisis in the steel industry and put socialist policies on the agenda.
Good afternoon, I'm Ramon Collier, I'm from the Welsh Communist Party, and I'd like to begin by saying solidarity to PCS members who are actually on strike today. And also it is Workers' Memorial Day that was mentioned outside the steps. And I think it's important that socialists come together to support comrades who are actually in dispute. The Welsh Communist Party is standing right across Wales in the 5 regions, so we're asked your second vote, so it's vote Grey, vote Welsh Communists. Our programme, to be perfectly honest, is on our website, www.welshcommunist.org, which will explain to you our analysis of the situation at the moment and how we think we can actually take Wales forward. Our programme of work is more power for people of Wales, and as I say, we are opposed to all the Tory-imposed Westminster cuts to our public services and our benefits, and we feel that the situation where we need greater infrastructure in Wales has been lacking. Well, we fully support the steel industry in Wales, obviously, and we would like to see investment in our infrastructure. So what we would say, obviously, is how you vote in your first vote is up to you. How you vote on your second vote, certainly in the regional vote, is vote Welsh Communist. Thank you, comrade.
I'm Kenneth Griffiths, and I'm the Plaid Cymru candidate for the Cynon Valley. My background is the Fire and Rescue Service. I'm a firefighter, and I'm also the Regional Secretary for the Fire Brigades Union in Wales. Since 2010, we've endured endless austerity. The ordinary workers paid the price for a banking crisis that wasn't their making or their choosing, and I'd like to reiterate my full support and solidarity for PCS members who have been stood on the picket line this morning. I stood up for FBU members who have seen their service, terms and conditions being constantly attacked, and I now want to stand up for everybody else, and more importantly for the most vulnerable in society, for people who can't fight for themselves. Plaid Cymru has put forward its most comprehensive manifesto ever. It's detailed, costed, and has been independently verified. We want to see a well Wales, a well-educated Wales, and a wealthier Wales. And I'd urge you, on the 5th of May, make Plaid Cymru your choice. Vote Plaid twice. Thank you.
my name is Peter Broom, and I work for the Museums of Wales. I'm a minor guide in Big Pickle and Avon. We've been on strike for, well, not strike, we've been disputing these payments, these cuts in austerity payments for 2 years now against a bullying management. I'm from a lovely town, I think, is Merthyr Tydfil, yeah, which the first Labour MP ever, Keir Hardie. The support we've had off the Labour government in Wales, Keir Hardie must be turning in his grave. Because we've had nothing but, it's Westminster. It's Westminster. We can't do this, we can't do that. Come on, Labour, stand up for the people of Wales. I'm a Labour supporter, and I'm nearly voting for someone else. My father would turn in his grave because he fought for Labour. We fought for this movement, we made this movement, and Labour have done nothing whatsoever. We're fed up. Everybody's fed up a year in. We can't do nothing. We can't do this, we can't do that. Come on, come in and stop it now. Stop these are the dinosaurs, miners here, who fought all their lives for the Labour Party. 33 years ago, I was arrested, and I had a criminal record fighting for my people, fighting for my social area. We may have lost, but we're proud. But Labour, please, please, I beg you, come and save us. Stop these bullies. You can do it. And how good would you look now? It's a bit late now, perhaps, but how good would you look coming in now and saying, stop the bullies, let's get the people sorted out. Please, Labour. Yeah, because I'm close.
I was brought up in a mining area about 50 miles away near Amgueddfa. My family worked underground. My grandfather, my father. We got into dispute. The FPU got into dispute in 2002, and following some of the changes made by the Labour government then, I could no longer support Labour. My father said to me, do you know what he said? Your grandfather would turn in his grave thinking that you would join the like me. I said, let me tell you, he would turn in his grave knowing what Labour have done. And I think simply, if there's an agreement in Scotland, I want to know why it hasn't been implemented in Wales. Why can't they do the same thing? If it's good enough up there, it's got to be good here. And that would be my question to them, is why isn't it something on the table now for that to be resolved?
Yeah, thanks.
I was slightly amazed that I think one of the comrades this morning said that the day after the election, the Labour Party, if in power I assume, are going to step in and resolve this dispute. Well, if this dispute has been going on for 2.5 years, why didn't they step in 2.5 years ago? You know what I mean? The issues are exactly the same. And I get slightly peeved where our Labour government in Wales actually continually blame the Tories for the cuts that they're actually implementing. Now, we would suggest that the Tories don't get away from this either. Surely Labour should have shown leadership. They haven't, and as I say, when we're going to blame one, we really got to blame the other. And we're opposed to the cuts, and we support the PCS and every other comrade who's in dispute.
Probably, you know, it will be welcome that the First Minister said that he's going to intervene. But why make the workforce go on strike for over a week before you step in? If they can intervene the day after the election, then they can intervene now. The question I'm asking is, why are organisations to take public funds set up in a way that allow them to treat their workforce in this way? If they take public funds, then they should be accountable. There should be none of this arm's length management laws set up. Is so that elected bodies can wash their hands of disputes between the workforce or the public and the bodies that run them. The Assembly should step in and they should directly run organisations like the museum. And the boards that manage them should be democratically accountable, both to the workforce, the people that go and visit those sites, and other sections as well. But unfortunately, that has been a tactic of Labour in power, not just Labour in power actually, but all of the political parties that have run councils in Wales. It's one of their strategies for managing the decline. Instead of fighting the cuts, they set up these bodies to implement them and to try and absolve themselves of any of the blame. Cardiff Council, for example, is preparing to set up a similar body to run leisure services in Cardiff. What will that mean? It'll mean that the workers, thousands of them actually, in different sections of the council work, will face similar kinds of attacks that you were facing. And what's the alternative? Because what all of these politicians will say is, of course, we don't set our own budgets, and you have to cut your cloth based on what you're given. And that is not true. The alternative is to fight. The alternative is to fight for more funding and to use every platform that you've got in order to do that. What alternative could the Welsh Assembly pursue? They could coordinate the resistance of every public sector body below them. Some of them, the councils, the NHS boards, the fire authorities and others, some of them have access to emergency cash, to reserves. Some of them have powers to borrow as well. If a plan was made that found the funds in order to provide all of the services currently offered and not cut any jobs or wages in the short term, then they could coordinate and build a campaign demanding more funding.
Well, thanks very much, and I hope you will vote Labour on May the 5th, and particularly the questioner. I hope you will recognise the fact that the Welsh Labour government that has been here in Wales is a strong and constructive friend to the trade unions, and you only have to look at the actions of what that Labour government has taken by, just to think of a few of them, retaining the Agricultural Wages Board. We had to go to the appeal court to do that, but we did it, and as a result of that, agricultural workers have had a 6% rise and are protected in a way that they are not protected in England. The Welsh Labour government has funded the Union Learning Fund, which ensures that there is education and opportunities within the workforce via the trade unionists, because we trust the trade unions and we work with them. And of course we've been implacably opposed to the trade union bill that has been is being implemented by the Tories in Westminster. And obviously that bill has, fortunately, by the opposition of mainly the Labour Party in Westminster, this has meant that that bill has been very much watered down, but what is left is still very strongly opposed by us. But the Welsh Labour government said that if that bill does pass, elements that affect the devolved services, we will make sure they will not be implemented. So Welsh Labour has got a really good record in terms of relationship with the trade unions. Now, in terms of this present dispute, I think the previous speaker said that the Welsh government wanted to set up organisations so it could wash off its hands of what was happening in them. I mean, that is really a nonsense, because one of the hallmarks of the Welsh government is the fact that it has taken many of the quangos into the Welsh government, so where they are directly under the control of the Welsh government. I understand there is something, I don't know the details of this, something about the museum's charter that made it impossible to do that when the bonfire of the quangos happened down in Cardiff Bay. They weren't able to do that. But nevertheless, I do believe that Welsh Government ministers should be doing all they can to help resolve the dispute, and I know some of them have tried. It is a dispute between management and the union. I think the management has been intransigent, and I would certainly welcome the First Minister intervening if we do form the government after May the 5th. But I do think that if you want to go on having the close working relationships between the unions and the Welsh Labour government that there is, you should be voting Labour on May the 5th.
Caroline James said in a letter, written in a letter, a colleague of mine sent in to him explaining the situation with the union and the way the SMT were treating us. Caroline James signed a letter saying, speak to HR.
Well, I can't, I know nothing about that letter, but I understand from what one of our
And then you reckon he's going to sort it out next Thursday?
This morning that he was prepared to intervene, and I think it is time to intervene.
But he's made statements and he's on record as saying we do not impose contracts in Wales. That's not the direction we go in. I don't want to raise any other party's sleeve.
No.
Like the other speakers, I've been a Labour supporter, active and voter throughout the whole of my life. I am teetering on the brink, looking at the weasel words that have come out from politicians about, but I've done what I said I'd do, or talk to somebody else. It's just not good enough.
Arm's length.
And arm's length management, you must have bloody long arms, that's all I can say, because it's never there. One other thing, without raising the sleeve of any party within this, there is absolutely no excuse, Quango or Constitution part. How can public money, whether it's from Westminster via Cardiff, be allowed to be used in such a way and not be accounted for? But millions of pounds were asked about in the Welsh Audit Committee interview of certain people, and it was wiped away with comments along the lines of, yes, well, it wasn't on your watch, we can't put the clock back, can we? Millions of pounds. We are talking money which is not being accounted for by Welsh Assembly government. I don't care what party it is, they should have put a stop to this sooner. You've been inactive. You don't deserve the title Labour.
Well, I think I gave you some examples earlier on why we do. And those are important examples.
But obviously we're looking navel-gazing at the moment. But in terms of our story, Labour doesn't deserve the title.
Well, I think it would be a huge backward step if we don't have Labour after Labour.
Whenever I hear Welsh Labour talking about these issues, all I can think is no more excuses. Every time the issues come to the forefront of the agenda, the excuse will be that it's from Westminster, it's an issue with somebody else rather than directly delivering on the ground in Wales. When disputes are affecting people's lives, isn't it nice to have nice pieces of paper like the Future Generations Act, something to protect culture and something to protect things for our children's children. I think that's an excellent piece of legislation, but if our workers don't have the respect, our highly skilled, knowledgeable workers don't have the respect who are working in those organisations, is it really worth the piece of paper it's written on? We need to be making sure that we do not undermine any of our workers' rights. And I am deeply disappointed of the excuses coming from Welsh Labour on the fact that they didn't come to the table and ban 0-hour contracts. If there's a contract that just undermines our workers' rights, gets rid of our maternity pay, gets rid of our health, our sick leave, gets rid of our holiday, that's the 0-hour contract for you there. And then when our workers are on strike, the museums can go and hire people in on 0-hour contracts and undermine even our unions. We have the chance to ban those in the Welsh Assembly, and we need to ban them in the next 5 years to make sure that we stop undermining workers' rights and build on a good workforce for our highly skilled and build on respect for our workers. If we can sort out the issues in our museums in Scotland, we can sort them out here in Wales. There needs to be the political willpower to do it. And if Carwyn Jones is saying, if you vote us in, I'll come to the table, that's a week too late, that's months too late, that's years too late.
I recognise that I'm probably the only conservative in the room. I do agree with the two gentlemen who mentioned that they've always voted Labour, their families voted Labour, and they are now considering switching. And I am a candidate in Bridgend, and Bridgend in the last general election, the difference was between Conservative and Labour was fewer than 2,000 votes. And therefore I did a lot of phone canvassing and door knocking. And I find it astonishing the number of people who said exactly what you have said, which is that they've always voted Labour, their families voted Labour, and they are not going to vote Labour for the first time ever.
I'm sure those people were able to know what we do. striking in England too, but please, on to strikes.
In terms of stories, in the museum itself, to be honest with you, the case of the museum, I was just told about it just now, literally, as I got into the room. And
Doing some research,
I wasn't aware of it just now. And the reality with this is that if it's something that I don't know anything about, I will not mention it. I live in Bridgend, football, and today it was the first time that I hear about it.
Okay,
I would suggest that you find out your party and come up with a position and let our members know.
The course we've made that with every pound invested in tourism, £6 is generated in the economy. Now the museum's budget is £28 million. So from those figures, for the economy, the museum generates £140 million to the economy. Now, with the cuts being made, we have 50 members of front of house staff down, so that's putting pressure on each and every one of our members. There's been cuts now made to our pay. So my question is, if the museum can generate £140 million for the economy through the figures that have been said, why aren't there more investments being made into the museum to make our lives better and to generate more money for the economy?
Yeah, Howie Oliver, I'm the PCS Group President in the Welsh Government. I just think it's incredibly sort of premature, is it not, of the First Minister to suggest he's going to step in after the election. He obviously assumes that he's perhaps still going to be the First Minister, and I think in a way that's the problem in Wales, really since the Assembly's been in existence, is that we pretty much have Labour administration for the whole of that time. I think they've taken a lot of that support for granted. I come from mid-Wales. There's a sense in mid-Wales that increasingly Labour are not concerned about the big swathe of country that exists between south and north. We've seen considerable cuts in certainly our area. But I would say to those who are considering voting Labour again, you need to be bold, you need to be brave. We do need to change desperately in Wales. How many of us here can honestly say that things, as we sit here, have improved? That's not the perception that I have, and certainly not the perception of many of the people that I represent in mid-Wales. But my question really is, especially the panel, is what would they do to ensure that there is a more even spread of prosperity across Wales? Because I think there's a sense that increasingly the southeast, a bit like London, is sucking a considerable amount of resource in, and other parts of Wales are suffering as a consequence of it.
Jamie and Solkar, People's Assembly, and amongst other things. I work in the third sector. For the last 5-6 years, we've been meeting with Welsh Government, and I have no issues such as the veteran tax, other things. It always comes down to this same mantra. Budget cuts Westminster, we can't pick up their mess. That's what we hear. You can go into funding seminars. It's so predictable. Other people in this room will have had that experience too. Okay, so what are we going to do in that case? Accepting that some of that is true, to actually fight for fair funding.
Yes.
Why are we involving all of Wales, our communities, our workplaces, everybody in that struggle? Because at the moment you hear it on the bay, it's an echo chamber. We take it back to our offices and the faces along. So what are we going to do to involve people in a mass campaign, as we've seen elsewhere, for fair funding in Wales?
Dave, very quickly, question.
Well, I mean, it's two very quick ones actually. I'm a PCS activist at DVMA. A lot of National Museum strikers. Karen Jones has said he's going to intervene on Monday. I think strikers would like. Sorry, after election. I think strikers are entitled to know intervene in what way. Is he going to intervene to support the strikers? Is he going to intervene to support the museum? Or is he neutral between the two sides? I think people deserve to know. Second question is, are the candidates in favour of cutbacks in local authorities? And if not, what is the strategy to fight those cuts?
Hi, my name is Elvin and work in the National Slates Museum in Llanberis, come down today to support the rally. I'd just to ask the panel a fundamental question really about why most of us are here today. Does the panel support the notion that people work weekends should have financial recognition for the antisocial hours and working weekends?
mean, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not very familiar with what's going on this strike, and to be honest with you, in terms of the briefing that we received, it was about different issues that we were going to discuss today, so I prepared for something different also. I'm going to try as much as I can to address the question that you mentioned. I completely agree with the point about the working on sociable hours. It does deserve, if you work, for example, on weekends or at night, of course, you are working on sociable hours, and definitely there has to be premium for that. And it doesn't have to be the government to impose these. If you think about market economics from a basic perspective, there is supply and demand. So if people are willing more to work, for example, during the day than evening time, of course, if people like to sleep during night, then obviously the demand and supply will fix it automatically, and you will have higher premiums for working during the night or during the weekend. So I agree completely with the principle of that. And actually, that
George, it doesn't have like junior doctors there.
Just to clarify something.
If you don't know what position your Labour First Minister is going to take on this, then there's something seriously broken in Welsh Labour if we don't know that he's going to support the workers. Should people who work weekends and anti-social hours be rewarded for that and have the financial recognition? Hell yes. I don't think I need to say anything more on that. But what we've campaigned for in the Green Party, in councils and at every level, is the 1 to 10k ratio, so that to make sure that people aren't taking huge salary increases at the top end of those salary brackets without giving people who are on the lowest wages a pay increase as well. And I think it's only by making sure that we've got that ratio that we can make sure that the rich just aren't getting richer while ignoring the needs of people with the lower salaries. We need to be making sure that we stop that. It's almost Dickensian at the moment what's happening in this country, which is why I'm a strong supporter of the People's Assembly, because it's only by making sure that we have a fair taxation system and policy in place that protects workers that we're actually going to have a more progressive country in Wales and the UK as a whole. In terms of how we're going to campaign, I feel like there really has not been enough consultation coming out of the Welsh Assembly in general. And what happens, first of all, we need to fight against all of the cuts coming from Westminster, and I believe the People's Assembly is the movement to do that. But then beyond that, working within communities to actually find solutions. When I've worked in social housing projects that were going to get knocked down, actually consulting with people when the Labour Council were given options 1, 2 and 3, which all of those options meant people had to leave their homes. Actually through consultation and working with communities, we managed to find options 4, 5, 6 and 7 that worked for everybody involved in that situation. And it's what's been happening in Wales compared to what's been happening in Scotland. It has been, the difference just a handful of Greens make is incredible. I'm sure that we've all been inspired by the work of Caroline Lucas in Westminster, the work of Patrick Harvey in Scotland. It was Greens that helped stop the bedroom tax being implemented to people in Scotland by ring-fencing money so that the Scottish Parliament actually paid the bedroom tax instead of it being passed on to people who it's absolutely immoral being affected by that. And that can be done here in Wales. That difference that just a handful of Greens makes a difference to us all. And if just 1 in 15 Labour voters had, instead of voting Labour on the list, had voted Green the last Welsh Assembly elections, we'd already have that Green representation that I really believe that Wales deserves. And I just want to be really clear about the realities of that grey regional list. 85,000 people voted Labour on it. You cannot get another Labour person elected on the list. That seat is either going to be UKIP, Tory, Green or Plaid. Obviously I want you to vote Green, but if you want to vote for Progress, really think about how you use that regional vote, because whatever you believe, if whoever you vote for, whatever we do, we have to make sure that UKIP do not get that second seat in South Wales Central. I believe that Wales can do better than having that UKIP representation that's coming through, and it's by using that vote wisely on the list that you're going to get that. So obviously please vote Green, but think about using your vote progressively on that list vote and not wasting it on a Labour vote, because you are not going to get anyone elected to Labour on the list.
Yes, thanks very much. Yes, certainly I think there should be financial recognition for workers on the weekend. I mean, there's no question about that. And I haven't talked individually to people who are affected by this. I know that there are individuals who, like, if they have to accept the contract that's going to be offered, they will not actually be able to pay their rent. I mean, there will be real implications. I absolutely agree that there should be recognition for work on the weekends. I mean, we can't get away from the fact that the Welsh Labour government has had a huge cut from Westminster, and I don't think it should be used as an excuse for not doing things, but we have to acknowledge this £1.9 billion has been cut from Westminster, and sometimes we have to make sure, particularly in elections, that we turn our attention to where the problem of it all is, which is the Tories and what they've done, and not always turn against Labour. Because Labour has to be, certainly Labour in Wales, has been a buffer to some extent to the worst impact of the cuts from Westminster. And I was amazed really about the person, I don't know who it was, who said they hadn't seen any benefits at all from devolution. Somebody over here said that they hadn't seen any benefits at all from devolution. I don't know who that was. From Aberystwyth.
No, I didn't say that. I said that we haven't seen any benefits.
All right, I'm sorry, I misunderstood then. I thought you didn't see that anything can become better, because I was just about to defend many things that I think the Labour government has done, which has helped mitigate against these cuts, such as just thinking about the free prescriptions and the free breakfast for children in school, the very generous free bus pass compared to other parts of the country. We've tried always to make that difference, what Labour is able to offer in Wales, that hasn't been able to be offered, or there's been no move to offer it in other parts of the country. And of course Scotland is mentioned a lot, and Scotland has followed a lot of the things that Wales has done. For example, Scotland followed the free prescriptions, and many of the things that have happened in Wales have been models for what has happened in Scotland. So I sometimes think we also get into the trap of thinking, oh, everything that's happening in Scotland is fantastic, whereas they have copied Wales, and I'm pleased they have in many ways. And the other issue, of course, to remember is that Scotland is much more generously funded than Wales, because the consequence of the Barnett formula is that Scotland is a winner and Wales is a loser, and we have to get fair funding. We have to get fair funding for Wales, and we have to work very hard in order to ensure that. And again, I think I'll just end, because I think it's I've been going on a bit. I ask you again to vote Labour for progressive policies, to vote Labour for what we've been able to achieve since devolution in Wales, and we have the vision to go on building on that to make a better, fairer Wales.
I agree with the point that Gerard made about how austerity is counterproductive. I mean, I'm a socialist. I think that the economy should be publicly run. It should be run democratically. Those kinds of organisations should dominate our economy. But even from the point of view of the current system, where our economy is dominated by private companies, by and large, it makes no sense to take money out of people's back pockets so that they don't have any to then spend and continue the economy. I'm surprised to hear the Tory make the argument, actually, that they sorted out the economy, and that's what convinced him to join the organisation in the week that Austin Reed goes bust, EHS goes bust, the steel is under threat of going the way of coal in Britain, and workers in the public sector have to go on indefinite strike action in order to defend their living standards. What does that show you? It shows you that after almost a decade of crisis, what we've got on the cards, after going through all that pain, what we bought with that pain is more crisis. It shows the Tories haven't sorted out the economy. I disagree with Julie as well. I don't think that Labour has acted as a buffer, unfortunately. Of course, there are some things that haven't happened in Wales that have happened in England that it's good that they haven't happened. But look at what's happened to the NHS. In the last 4 years that we've got figures, 2,000 beds have been cut from the NHS. That's 15% of the beds. They're expecting us to rely on 5 A&Es for the over 2 million people in South Wales between Llanelli and Newport. I mean, that is ludicrous. And in terms of the how you'd spread the benefits of across the whole of Wales, that issue of hospital closures, of maternity wards shutting down, and A&Es being shut or downgraded in particular, is one that hits other parts of Wales very sharply. I mean, I wouldn't be in the same organisation, but I also disagree with Amelia, actually, about the point that she made about the strategy. How do we do something about the situation that we're in? How do we build a political alternative? Because I don't think Labour has acted as a buffer. I think, in fact, the major sort of approach has been to collaborate. Every cut that the Tories have demanded, have asked for, has been implemented. There's been no opposition. But unfortunately, it's not just Labour that's been collaborating. We've seen a carnival of collaboration of all the main parties. And we hear these arguments all the time that don't vote for what you believe in, don't vote for the most convincing candidate, don't vote for the political programme that's closest to what you believe, vote for something else. Because that's a better strategy, that's better tactics. And what do you end up with? You end up with voting Liberal Democrat and getting a Tory Prime Minister, helped to power by the Liberals. Or in Cardiff, unfortunately, I mean, there are good people implied as there are in other organisations, but Cardiff voted for Plaid councillors and ended up with a Liberal council that closed care homes, that privatised care for the elderly. I think it's time we built an organisation that we have control of, not just select one from a group of parties that tell you that we will act on your behalf. We need something that we can control, that we can run. That's why Tusk is in favour of all candidates standing on a worker's wage, not accepting the big bucks salaries that come with winning positions, and that we are in favour of the right to recall as well. So we would fight for the right to be to stand for election at any point if you don't agree with what candidates are doing. You should be able to vote people out, in other words, as well as voting them in. And just with that, I think that we're a strong movement. The trade union movement is the biggest non-governmental organisation in Britain. If we pull together, and in particular, if we build a political expression for what we believe in, then we can put an alternative onto the agenda.
I must admit I get frustrated when it's 2016 where somebody asks, should we have premium payments for weekend work? And I thought we had fought those battles many years ago. I thought we'd bloody won it. When we got to fight them all over again means that there's a breakdown in the system. Where a Conservative actually comes to Cardiff, doesn't understand that the National Museums is national, and which gives a bit of a game away. And says that the Labour Party actually caused the crisis when it was a crisis of capitalism that caused the crisis, and it was the fact that the banks and big business decided that they could tax themselves at any figure that they wanted and deprive us of our public services. I think that's what we should be looking at, is actually tax the people who actually caused the crisis in the first place. And we don't ask them, like we ask Google, to pay, can you pay us a couple of million this year because we're a bit skint. No, we should force them to pay. And if they don't pay, then we should lock them up and we should chuck them out of Britain anyway. Let's be perfectly honest. Let's be honest. The one thing which is obvious to anyone who's sat in this room at the moment, is that the one thing that the Welsh Assembly actually needs is a bloody socialist voice, a good socialist voice. The voice of the people. Definitely. The voice of the people who actually formed the Labour Party and who formed the Communist Party and who are in the process of supporting Tusk. The working class are the people who actually make the money in this country, and it is the rich people, the rich folk, the bankers and Cameron's crew who actually take all the money. And the one thing we've learned from this campaign, given the steel crisis, given the Panama Papers, given other problems which we've discovered, such as trying to take our trade unions away from us, we don't need weaker trade unions. The one thing we definitely need is stronger trade unions, and the trade unions need ownership of their own rule book. We don't need a judge or anybody in a bloody unelected body to say you can only have a picket line of 6 people and they should stand over there and we want to know their names. It's our unions, and we'll fight for our unions, and we'll fight for the bloody Welsh Assembly.
We seem to have got into a situation in Wales now, from what I can see, is that there seem to be fat cap pay rates for those at the top. And like I said at the start, my background's a fire and rescue service. I've seen huge salaries paid to chief officers. I've seen bonuses being paid for implementing cuts, closing fire stations, that sort of thing. And again, we're seeing, you know, it's the lowest paid that are paying the biggest price. That is completely wrong. As for the weekend premium, absolutely agree with it, totally. Totally agree with Ramon as well when he says about stronger trade unions. And I think that employers should be engaging more with trade unions. Over the last few years, we've seen unprecedented cuts to the fire and rescue service. We've seen fire stations closing, and we've been warning that cuts will cost lives. Result this week in The Guardian, a 21% increase in fire deaths. This situation, it can't continue. And I think that the sooner that we get around the table, that the government, the management, sit down with the workers and actually listen to what the workers are saying, the better that this country will be. That's it.
Yeah, we've all learned a rule today that if you leave a boy from Aberdeen, a capital city, he gets lost. I've been wandering around trying to find you for ages, so I was going to say something at the beginning. But I just wanted to, first of all, say thanks to everybody for coming. I mean, that's been really lively, and I hope the politicians have enjoyed being subjected to the questions that you've raised. I also want to thank everybody for coming as well and answering the questions. What democracy should be about, where you get the chance to ask people and hear from them firsthand. And I also want to thank, without naming people, the politicians on the top table who have been supporting the strike at the Welsh Museum and have been standing with the workers. I just want people to leave you this thought. The PCS is a non-affiliated trade union. We don't affiliate to any political party. But we are a very political and politically active union, and we recognise it's very important what happens in elections. But life is not just about its elections, it is about campaigning and standing up for the things that you believe in between. And I think what should be said at this meeting is we should be in no doubt that the life of our members, who have now had 11 years of pay restraint, pensions cut, redundancy payments slashed, 100,000 of them have lost their job, is more miserable than it has ever been before. And the reality is that the Tory government in Westminster is a blight on public sector workers and anybody who stands in the public sector. It comes to something when I stand with Caroline Lucas, Jeremy Corbyn in Whitehall on Tuesday, having to demand support for junior doctors striking on behalf of the NHS. And so let's, I think, all remember that what the Tories are trying to do to us, we've got to ensure that in your election, nothing happens that bolsters David Cameron in Whitehall, because we want David Cameron out of Whitehall. Now that said, what I want to say about the election on May the 5th is simply this. We want every member to vote, right? We actually believe in an electoral system where every vote should count, and everybody should think carefully about what their local candidate says and how what you do brings about some progressive change. But I want to be quite clear that wherever people live in Wales, what your union stands for is that we think the attack on the welfare state is diabolical, the health service is underfunded, forcing fantastic state schools to become privatised academies is completely outrageous. And if we look at what's happening in Wales, as I said at the rally, it is an 18th century model of industrial relations where people in this room, this week, were taken into rooms on their own and told if they don't accept pay cuts, or don't sign a new contract, they will be sacked. That is a disgusting way to treat any human being, let alone the men and women of the Welsh museums who do such a fantastic job 7 days a week for the visitors to Wales and the Welsh institutions. So I am proud that we've got Welsh Museum strikers here today. I'm glad the politicians have heard from them. I hope that people make sure when you vote for a strong public sector, anti-austerity, and for a more equal society. But I also hope that when you vote, you remember that up to the election and if this strike isn't sorted, we hope you keep pressuring the politicians, support our members at strike, support our collections because people are losing loads of money for having to stand up for themselves. And remember this, that we want a progressive government, but it is strong trade unions that deliver equality in the workplace day in, day out. And that's what PCS stands for, that's what our members at the Welsh Museum stand for. And working together, they can win, and we can have a fairer society than what we want. So good luck to everybody, get stuck into the campaigns, and thanks for everybody to come today.